Welcome to OVACAST with Michelle and Nick. And today's episode, we have a couple disclaimers to get started right off the bat. This is talking about mental health, stress, and anxiety, and like that. And it might help some people, but for other people, it might be triggering. Also, we are not psychologists or psychiatrists. We are not experts. We are just normal lay people that. This is anecdotes of our own lives and maybe articles and stuff we've read or videos we've seen here and there, but we are very far away from being experts on any topic, really.
We're just talking about our own experiences, not necessarily like...
Yeah, this is what the clinical analysis is of this situation.
And I wanted to also say, I've been diagnosed with things. I don't think Nick has ever been diagnosed with anything, though.
I've been meaning to get tested for quite a while.
Right. So everything like we're saying is just self-diagnosis. So if that bothers you, keep that in mind too. And also if you have health anxiety and you have problems with people talking about certain topics like cancer or things like that, this is not the podcast for you. At least not this episode.
This episode is not.
So definitely come back for the next episode or listen to the first episode. But this is not going to be your episode. Because I know personally, if I was going to be listening to a podcast and they were like, oh, just so you know, I'm going to be talking about my blah blah blah, I'd be like, yeah, I'm not listening
these
to this.
traumatic situations we've been through.
So just so you guys know, we want we're thinking about our own mental health as well as yours. So always protect yourself.
So if you want to back out from this one, it's okay. If you want to skip to episode 3, if you have episode 3 uploaded by now, or episode 4, however many, depending on what time you're watching this, or you can rewatch episode 1 or
whatever you want to do.
We understand.
There's vlogs every week. You could go put one of those on and listen to that.
We understand, and it's okay.
Yeah. So, where do you want to start?
I don't even know.
It's so big. It's such a broad...
Maybe we'll talk about what traumatic incidents we've gone through or things that we've been through. Like, I know that we've been through. We were talking about the previous episode as a tie to that one. We talked about a relationship over the 8 years and how we've been through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Over those 8 years.
We have had no shortage of hard times. That's for sure. And I think that a lot of it, like, I feel like the health stuff. Well, see, the health stuff. If you guys don't know, I definitely think I have a form of health anxiety. Bad. Like, it's pretty significant. Like, I will, me and Nick were just talking about this today. I have certain hyperfixations, right? Where I'll hyperfixate on something fun. Like, right now my hyperfixation is vintage video games. So I'll hyperfixate on that, recapturing my childhood. I want to play Donkey Kong or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And then I kind of don't have issues with, like, other things. But I'm hyperfixating on this coming off of a 5-day hyperfixation on whether or not I could breathe. You know? So it's like, and I mean, that was tough.
Yeah.
That was a tough 5 days of, like, pure just floating between I can't breathe to a panic attack and back and forth and back and forth.
And I think you've always had anxiety as far back as I've known you.
Right.
But I think it has heightened since your father has passed. That was a very big traumatic thing. Realizing the mortality of, you know, it's one thing to think about abstractly, but to have that concrete of a...
Well, I think too, it was, with that at least, that portion of it, there was a lot of, like, my dad died in May. I was diagnosed with uterine cancer in January of the following year. You know, and this is the January of the following year. This is after having, you know, 5 years of problems. You know what I mean? That all came to that. That was what the problems were from. There was just a lot of, and ever since then, I've been like, well, I think part of it too is once they tell you have something like that, like cancer, because we didn't know how bad it was going to be.
Yeah.
But I think I learned with that too is your mind can play a lot of tricks on you, because I went in for that if you guys don't like listening to women talk about
Your body parts.
body parts, and this is definitely like, this podcast is not the podcast like this episode.
This
It's
episode, yeah.
not, I keep saying podcast, not the entire thing. Just this
This
episode
episode.
is not the episode for you. I'm gonna warn you guys again. But coming out of the DNC, I was having pain. I was like, oh my god, it's gonna be so bad. I think I took it in stride at the time when I was in it.
Yeah, you've done amazing.
I really tried to
You really
just be
have.
like, okay, well, we're just gonna take this one day at a time, because I was there. I wasn't trying to like plan for what if this happens. It was like, this is happening, so now let's just take it one day at a time. Because before that, I was like panic mode. I was telling my friend the other day when I was talking on the phone with them, I was like, I don't think I've missed a dose of medication since my dad died. And that was 3 years ago. I don't think I have missed one dose of medication. I don't think I have missed a doctor's appointment. I don't think I've missed getting my blood drawn. You know what I mean? Like, I have been on top of every medical thing I've needed to do since my dad died.
Yeah, it's been so difficult.
It's been
going
hard.
through all that. I can't imagine what it must. It's tough enough to be like a spouse. It's really tough to be in a situation where you want to help and make it better. You want to heal things and make things right, but you can't, and you can only just be supportive and try to help. And it's tough seeing someone you love go through that mentally and physically, and without much you can do. And I can only imagine what it was like for her to go through those traumatic experiences.
And the thing is I've never been in that place. Like, I have been in that place where somebody dies, because your dad died when we were together.
Yeah.
But it was such a different.
It's a very different
totally
situation.
different situation, and that's not to say it was less than, more than, or whatever.
It's very different.
But and if you're ever comfortable, we could get into that.
Oh yeah, and I'm sorry I didn't ask you beforehand if you were comfortable talking about your dad.
Yeah,
I figured
I've vlogged about it and stuff before,
Yeah.
so it's
Plus, I figured if you weren't, we could like edit it out or
Yeah,
whatever.
I don't.
And so if there's anything I ever say or anything like that,
Yeah.
or vice versa, you let me know and we can edit out or stop and then
I
start
don't feel like
recording.
either one of us, so we kind of have the same level of. I think maybe sometimes I'm a little bit more open than you would want to be, but
Yeah.
we pretty much have the same level of like, okay, we can touch on this, but let's not like say the names of where, you know, we've worked or whatever. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like, we're both pretty good about that. But yeah, I was with Nick when his dad passed away, but that was a really different situation, because you and your dad were not close. You had gone no contact
Yeah.
a lot, like a few years before that.
It was a very different situation, very different relationship. There, but I will get to that eventually.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure that we get through what you were feeling and thinking
But
and your
yeah,
experiences
but my
first.
dad passed away, and he had a lot of the same medical problems that I have. Because my mom has the same type of thing as well, and she's still alive and well, obviously. But that was scary, because it was like, you think about death very abstractly. Like, yes, I've had grandparents die, but you're like, but they're old. You know what I mean? Like, in your mind, you're like, they're older people. Like, of course they passed away because they were in their,
their 80s or something.
Their 70s or their 80s or whatever, But with him, he was in his mid 60s. Like, that's young.
That's pretty, yeah.
And then it was like, well, there was a lot of things he ignored about his conditions. There was a lot of things he just didn't take care of himself. So I think for me, it was like, okay, so now I have to do everything to try to take care of myself. Now, I will admit my diet has never been 100% good all the time, and it still isn't. I try really hard to do moderation and stuff, but I'm never gonna be perfect, and that's just, I like food.
Right.
That's just, you know what I mean? That's just, you don't get to be, my size without that. And I mean, you look at your parents too, and you're like, well, my dad, I got all these things that I have wrong with me, these personality traits that maybe aren't the best. I get them from my dad.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a great person. You know what I mean? He was a great guy, and I don't want to talk down about him or anything like that, but I do. I get a lot of the issues that I have from my dad. I have horrible anxiety. I have horrible social anxiety. There's situations I won't even put myself in because I will literally, I get into this fight or flight. And I don't know if you've ever had that level of anxiety in a social situation, but it was like when I was having problems at the last job I worked.
Oh yeah, that
I
was tough.
Somebody was being so awful to me, and I was the boss. I could have literally said, "Okay, you need to just go home then, or you're fired, or whatever." I was this person's boss, and I literally went into fight or flight.
Yeah.
She had just totally, you know, mentally, I was not doing well. Really,
Yeah, you weren't.
I wasn't doing well.
I would see her come after work, and it was really stressful for her.
Because I don't do well with people that I don't know, and I think you and I've talked about this before. I don't know what I'm getting. I don't do well with that.
Yeah.
Like some people, like Nick's pretty good with like, okay, well I'm just gonna go with the flow and like whatever. Like he can get ready for the day, and he's sitting here drinking his coffee, and we'll get to it when we get to it. Whereas I'm like, okay, at 9 o'clock, and I've gotten better with you.
Yeah.
This is part of our relationship too.
Yeah.
About explaining, like, okay, at 9, I don't mind. You could literally sit here naked for 45 minutes as long as you're ready by 9, because that's when we're leaving.
Yeah, you'll give me a time frame, because there's sometimes people in previous situations, people want me to guess or just automatically know what the time frame is, whereas you will be like, okay, we got 20 more minutes. Whatever you do, you'll give me a countdown of, okay, we got this many minutes, so be prepared.
Yeah. And I feel like to a lot of people, that's like, oh my god, like she's so bossy or this or that. No, it's just I know it works. I know it works for our situation.
After 8 years being together, she knows me really well.
Yeah, I just know what works. So I think that's where like a lot of the health anxiety stems from, though, is definitely from when my dad passed away, and then I got cancer, and this was all within like 10 months of each other. And I'm not crying. I have like a...
You had to burp or something?
Yeah, I'm like trying to like not...
Yeah. Well, if you want to drink something, I could talk while you drink.
Yeah, go ahead.
Going through just one of those alone is incredibly stressful, impactful. Facing a mortality of a parent, facing your own possible mortality in that moment. One of those on its own is enough. But to have both is just a double whammy. And she has really been courageous throughout the whole thing, and she's been strong, and she's been amazing. But no matter how strong you are, it's still going to affect you. Yeah, it's still very scary. And I am so incredibly grateful that the cancer wasn't as bad as it could have been, and that the surgery went well, and everything went well. And it was awful, and I hope we never, ever come across anything like that ever again. I'm hoping this... But going through both of those, with her, it's tough. It's really difficult when you see someone like that and you can't do much. I remember the day he passed. We heard the news. Yeah. It was so surreal. I don't know if you ever had a parent or someone close to you that's died, but it feels surreal each time.
It feels great. And I think part of the problem with it was that they told us. My dad, if you guys don't know the whole situation, we had moved it where we are now. He was still in California because where we are, he would have been 4 hours away anyway, so we might as well just leave him where he was, because it was just easier. So we would have, by the time they called us, he was already pretty much gone, and we wouldn't have been able to make it down there in time. But the thing is, I think part of what made it so crazy was he wasn't here. So it was like nothing in your day-to-day life changed. Yeah, there was like this person that was there and now he's not. But day-to-day, nothing changed. It was so weird because you're like trying to like mourn somebody, and it's just... I think what we mourned more than like was the fact that he was never going to see it. What he helped build.
Right. He never saw the house. He didn't move with us. He didn't see any of the places here. I really wish he would have been here in much better health.
Yeah. I think
it would have been great to see him in much better health and be whole and be happy and be okay here. He would have loved it here, I think.
Yeah.
And it would have been great to...
The only like thing that makes you feel better is he's not suffering anymore.
Yeah, he's
He was
not.
suffering, and he's not suffering anymore, and that's great. But like I'm saying, I think a lot of my issues come from that.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't take care of himself, so I have to, like, overly take care of myself. Like, I have to make sure that I'm going on my doctor's appointment, which is a good thing. You should always go to your doctor's appointments. But it's gotten to the point where sometimes I've convinced myself, like with the cancer, when I was going back to that, in January I went in of 2022. No, 1.
Yeah.
What?
I think it was 1.
Oh, 2021. Yeah, sorry. In January of 2021, I went in to get a DNC because he was going to do a biopsy anyway. So I went in to get a DNC. That's when they found the cancer. And from January until I had my hysterectomy in April, I was like, oh my God, I'm in so much pain. Like, this is the cancer. It's worse. It's bad. It's this. It's that. And this was all in my head. Like, I'm just like, oh, I'm in so much. Well, I'm thinking this, right? I was actually in physical pain.
Right.
But I'm thinking it's because of, like, this back pain is because of this. This is because of this. Oh my gosh, am I being bloated? Am I this? Am I that? And it's all because I have this horrible cancer, right? It's eating away. I go to get the hysterectomy. She does everything. She takes out the uterus. I still have my ovaries. She tells my mom everything looks good. The lymph nodes are fine. They're clear. Ovaries look healthy. Great. I go to my follow-up 2 weeks later, and she's like, yeah, just so you know. Now, while I did have cancer, when they did the biopsy, I have the medical paperwork that says they found nothing. When they actually, like, took the uterus and looked at it, she's like, pathology went through the whole thing and they couldn't find any cancer.
Oh, yeah.
So
I think I remember that now.
I'm
like I'm finding this out for the first time.
But they didn't find anything in the actual organ when they went through with pathology to look for it. So it's like that whole time I'm going, I'm in pain, I'm this, I'm that, oh my God, oh my God. It was all in my head.
Yeah.
I was not as bad as I thought it was, or I had convinced, my anxiety had convinced me. And that's what's been happening. Like I'm saying, like I just came off a 5-day panic attack where I hyperfixated on my breathing. Nothing, I don't have COVID. I don't have, you know what I mean? With all these things, you don't have this, you don't have that. I bought a pulse oximeter or whatever it's called. Because is that what it's called? A pulse oximeter? Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Because the thing that measures the oxygen in they put on your finger. I'm ordering one of those because I'm convinced. And I did all that. And it was like, once I started to see the facts of the situation, because sometimes I feel like you do need to do things like that to make yourself feel better. The fact is, my blood is like 99%. We're fine. You know what I mean? Your heart rate is fine. Like, all these things that you're worried about are fine. Once I saw that, I could hyperfixate on something else. Something a little bit more fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to that point, I was miserable for like a week.
And it's tough because you want to make her feel better and make her be like, oh no, it's nothing to worry about. You're going to be fine. This is just you thinking it up. It's good to check. We can check on things, and you can do good things to try to keep yourself healthy as best you can. But then after that, you gotta let it go for your own mental health.
Yeah.
Which is easier said than done. It's not. I know what it's like to hyperfixate and worry and
I feel like too is like when you're hyperfixating on that, you can't just force yourself to hyperfixate on something. Like I couldn't force myself to be like, you know what, get a beta, you'll be fine. Like I had to want to move on. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because, like, in the moment, you're like, this was very real. Like, all this stuff, all these things you're feeling are really, really real.
Yeah, the mind-body connection is it's very powerful.
I'm having heart palpitations. I can't breathe. My chest hurts. Like, and then once I fixated on something else, and I was like, you know what? This and this and this are saying I'm fine, so I'm probably fine.
Yeah, and then it's at that point, once you have actual confirmation, then you're okay.
Then I'm like, all right, well, then we'll get a beta or what. And then the beta died. That was a whole other thing. But it's like, and then it's like I'm fixating on that. And then I'm making myself feel bad about things that happen with that. And then now I'm fixating on vintage video games. So there you go.
Yeah, which is my favorite. She said this many times. This is my favorite one because I wanted to play Twilight Princess and I hope it comes out on Switch. But she found a Wii. She bought a Wii, and then I can play Twilight Princess now. She got it for me and
On the
everything,
big
and
TV, and we got a
yeah,
converter and everything. But yeah, so it's just, sometimes the fixations are really fun, and then sometimes they're not.
they're not. Yeah,
And when they're not fun, it's not fun for anybody, because and I know that everybody here is very understanding, and they're never like, oh my God, but it can be annoying. When you're like, you're literally breathing. I see you breathing. You're sleeping at night. You're not waking up gasping for air. You are fine. And you're telling this person, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. But when you can tell me as much as you want that I'm fine, but unless I'm convinced that I'm fine,
yeah. Until
and
you have,
there's nothing that another person can do.
yeah, it's tough to be in that situation because, if I could have a superpower, it'd be to be able to heal people, and it's tough even with strangers, let alone the person that you love the most.
Yeah.
Seeing them go through a tough mental spot or or a physical spot, it's tough to see that, and there's only so much you can do. And sometimes I'll bug her a little bit because I'll be like, "Oh, can I do this or can I do that?" I'll keep
Yeah.
offering solutions, like, "Can I make you some tea, some tension tamer tea or something, anything I can do?" And then, sometimes I'll overwhelm her with how much.
Yeah, yeah. But that's just how you are, and I've accepted it. But
The other thing, and I'm not trying to underplay it, but because it's affected so many people, but it's sort of more minor than what you went through with those two things, but it was still a big historical event that we went through, and
yeah,
thousands or millions of other people went through, was we got the vid, both of us, we
right.
had it.
At the same time.
And I was so worried, and I count myself so grateful and so lucky because back then, especially, or even now, sometimes people think, oh, it's like you're gonna die for sure if you get
Yeah.
it, like, or you're gonna have long-lasting health repercussions. And so far, and we're very grateful that that hasn't happened with us,
Right.
that to our knowledge that we're aware of. And at the time, I was worried I was going to lose you. I know that sounds dramatic, but I really was,
Well,
with all the news that was going on
yeah,
at the
because you're
time.
hearing so many things, and I think that whole thing, the quarantine and everything, has affected a lot of people's mental health. I don't think it's just you and I or whoever. It affected a lot of people. A lot of people think I have not been the same since 2020.
Yeah.
And that's the truth, because that was scary. You thought, oh, if anybody gets this, you're going to die. Like, that was the mentality.
Yeah.
You have this, you're going to die. And not only that, but I had pre-existing conditions.
That's what I meant. I was
I'm
worried
diabetic.
the most for you, yeah.
Yeah, I'm on diabetic. I have, high blood pressure and things like that. And I count us very, very lucky that you and I did not get it that bad. It was like a really bad cold.
Yeah.
And that's, like he said, that's not downplaying anybody else's situation, because a lot of people got it and it was like ventilator.
Yeah.
And, people did pass away.
Yeah, how I look at it is we dodged a bullet
Yeah.
we really did. And I am forever grateful for that, because there are a lot of people who weren't.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine, I thought it was, when we got it, I thought it was one of us was going to die.
Yeah.
And I was hoping it was going to be me, because I wouldn't want you to die. And I was really worried about you. And how we got it is a coworker of hers went to a party without.
Had a Christmas party with 75 people with no masks in December of 2020. So dumb. So dumb. And then came back to work the following day sick already, and then by New Year's we were all sick.
Yeah, and it was. You hear about historical events, you read them in books, you watch videos about them. It's a whole different thing to live through them.
It really
very
is.
different, yeah. To live through that time, and there'll be times up ahead, and that's stressful and scary too. But we'll try to get through it as best we can, one moment at a time. And but that was the other thing we went through.
Yeah, we've been through a lot. Like, me and him have been together, like we were saying in our last video, or our last podcast, or last episode, whatever. Me and him have been through a lot together. We've been together since 2016. We've been through, and mostly me.
Yeah, most of it's been you. Most of it's. I wish I could. That's the other thing is, I wish I could hold your pain for you, and take the burden rather than you having to.
Because Nick's been with me through my breaking up with Connor's dad and trying to navigate that while trying to navigate a new relationship.
Yeah. And before I forget, and I forgot to say this in the last episode, there's so many things. There'll be something on this episode of like, oh, I should have said this. I should.
In the next episode, he's probably gonna say,
yeah.
Last episode, I should have said.
But in the previous episode, I didn't give your ex enough credit for the way he handled it, because he could have reacted.
I think you did.
I don't know if I did or not.
I think you did.
But
say
just in case if I didn't, I'm gonna say it now, is I give him a lot of credit for acting as civilly as he did.
Yeah.
Because he could have been.
And I remember us being scared. We could do this in another video, but I remember us being really scared to tell him because we thought he was gonna react really poorly.
Yeah, and he's handled it really well so far, and I give him a lot of credit for that. It's not an easy thing. I try to place myself in his shoes. I can only imagine that would be like.
So we've literally, me and Nick have been through that. I had tonsillitis horribly. I had Bell's palsy at one point.
I thought she was having a stroke when it happened.
That was a whole thing.
There's been at least 2 or 3 times I thought, oh no, I'm going to lose the love of my life here. Yeah, it's awful.
We've been through Bell's palsy together. We've been through cancer. We've been through Connor's eye surgery.
That was a crazy
We've been through so much together that we're just like, at this point, where are you going to go? I've seen people say that before, like, with our relationship, like, because I know sometimes with the mental, like, pulling it back to the mental health part of it, it's like, it's hard to be with somebody like me. I understand that. Like, I'm a nice person and I try to put you first and all this stuff, but there's going to be days where I'm a shit. And that's just life.
Yeah.
I'm not in the right mood. I don't want to cuddle. I don't want you touching me or whatever. That's just how I am. And I think people have gotten a lot more understanding of that.
Yeah.
Like, in general, people realize, like, oh, you know what? Well, maybe not here, but, a lot of people realize that, oh, well, maybe she's acting this way because, she has ADHD, she has this, she has that. Whatever. She doesn't want you touching her. Yeah. It could be, you, for instance, or whoever.
Yeah.
I don't like anybody, especially in public. Strangers? No.
Yeah.
No. You know what I mean? Like, But even sometimes Nick, he'll want to, like, hug, like, first thing in the morning when I wake up, and I'm just like, because in myself, it literally feels like I'm screaming. Like,
yeah.
Get off of me. You know what I mean? Like, and I try to be really understanding, and I just will, like, stiff as a board, kind of. He knows I love him.
Right.
Like, and we'll talk about this more in the journey of the channel video, which I think our podcast, our episode we might do next. But it's like we went through a point where I was trying to do reaction videos.
Yeah.
And people were like, and I get it. I'm not immune to people having opinions, because at that point in time I was having opinions too.
Right.
So if I have an opinion, well, you should be able to have an opinion as well.
Yeah.
But there were some videos where people were like snipping things, and where I'm like, you can clearly see I'm irritated with you.
Yeah.
In the video.
Right.
Which, when you cut it up and you put all the points in time that I'm irritated with you together, of course it's going to look horrible.
Right.
Because the problem is I get irritated, and when I'm irritated, I'm vocal about being irritated. And Nick gets to the point where he looks like I beat the crap out of him. He just gets this dog, you know what I mean? Like a puppy that's been smacked. Look on your face.
Yeah.
I have never. You know what I mean? Like, he literally gets this look. I was just the other day, I was Googling, or I was looking on YouTube, our name, and somebody's video popped up from like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was a video, it was a 40-second video of you and I. And I am on the 3rd try of reacting to a Chantel video. The 3rd time I'm watching the same video. And he comes in to ask me a question. And the look, and I'm just like, I'm trying to get through this. Like, I'm trying to be nice when I'm like I am on the 3rd time and I'm trying to get through this. And you're asking me some trivial question that somebody had asked you to ask me. It wasn't even your question. And you're just like, you can't see this, but just think of the most depressed looking person in the world. And I'm just like, that's not even about you.
Right.
And people don't get it, though.
And I think early on, I thought I took everything personally, but then I realized that's just how you are,
Yeah.
and that I thought it was, oh, I'm doing something wrong, or she hates me in that moment, or she. And so what I've learned is to not take it personally. Try not to take it personally. Then distance yourself, from it. Don't like wait for her to come to you. Like if
Right.
she's ready for physical contact, because that's the other thing is we have a clash of love languages too.
Right.
Mine is physical touch a lot of the time, and then hers is acts of service. So that's the other thing as well. So sometimes I'll wait for her to come to me, and I won't initiate physical touch or something. There's other times where I'll just do it just because I feel I
I
don't.
need to.
Sometimes even subconsciously,
Yeah.
I don't even think about doing it.
Right.
Sometimes that's just naturally how I am, and I'll think, why is she so upset with the situation? Like I think this is like a level 3 upset she should be at maybe,
Yeah.
and then she's at like a 7 or an 8, and then I think, well, there's times where you've explained, well, I've been through this and this and this, and that stacks up together to make the reaction more than it would normally be.
Right.
And so it's just basically communicating and trying to understand, and just not saying that sometimes she's going to react to situations like that, and that's
Yeah.
just how
And
it
I've
is.
tried to get a lot better
And
about.
she has calmed down a lot of ways.
I try to just be like, you know what? Or I'll say I'm overstimulated right now. And I just need you. You know what I mean? Like I just need you to stop.
Yeah.
Like I've gotten a lot better, and we talked about this in the last episode too, about vocalizing this is why, this is not your problem. Like it's not about you. I don't need a solution. I just need you to listen. Like things like that. I'm telling you exactly what I need. Because you are an introvert. And
Yeah.
you're not one of those people that needs people around you all the time.
Yeah.
You know? So you're not the most socially aware person I've ever met. You know
No.
what I mean?
And so in those, it's very helpful to be like, okay, well, I'm feeling overstimulated right now. I need a break or whatever, and
Right.
then I can give us some distance, and then when you calm down or whatever, or go through process whatever you're going through, you can. So
Right.
it's just usually waiting and just being aware. A lot of times it's in the mornings before you eat too.
Yeah.
You
It's
can
not a
some
lack of caring for somebody though.
Yeah, there's other times where she can be so wonderful and amazing and so kind and just like very loving and everything, and there's those moments too where she'll surprise me out of nowhere. She'll be like very kind and loving and everything.
Yeah, and I think that for the most part,
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for you, but I think for the most part, I am kind and I'm always thinking about you, and I'm going, oh, we got this for you, or we got that for you, bringing things back for you. But I am an acts of service person. That's probably why.
Yeah.
But like he knows I love him, and I think about him when I'm away out and stuff like that. I'd much rather he be here with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not a fact of like, oh, he's always waiting for her to give him a hug. Or no, there's a lot of times that you're doing something else, and I'll rub your neck, or I'll, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pat you on the leg, hold your hand, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm like, I don't know.
It has gotten a lot better over time with
Yeah.
communication and everything. There are a lot of times you are that way where you are kind of a lot of those good qualities. Yeah.
You gotta just think about the other person because they have needs too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not all about me, and it's not all about you. It's about the two of us as a partnership. You know.
Yeah. You've been doing really good.
I've been trying.
It's not easy, I know.
Because me and Nick, like I said, Nick is an introvert, so he needs time to recharge too. But we've gotten better about communicating. Of like, I am burnt out because work was really difficult today, or I had a lot of orders I had to pack or whatever. I couldn't find something. We're a lot better about communicating it rather than just lashing out. You
Right.
never did, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Like even you're like, rather than just sit there and be silent.
Right.
And be like, I recharge. You'll be like, I just need to relax so I can.
Right.
Because
there's some mistakes you can make. There's some mistakes like I'm feeling this so intensely, or thinking about this so intensely that the other person can obviously mind read and know that I'm going through these things mentally, or I don't want to bother them. I don't want the burdens that I've went through today to be their burdens too, and put that on them. So I'm just gonna bottle it up and just try to just get through it without telling them.
Right.
And then what you learn over time is that number one, people cannot mind read. There's a lot of times where you will guess my behavior really well or get my mindset,
but not all the time.
But not all the time. And so sometimes it's better to communicate and be like, I'm going through this mentally or that mentally. And then you might think, oh, I don't want to burden them with this because this should be my burden to deal with. But in a relationship, you share burdens.
Right.
And it's not like this selfish thing of, oh, I'm going to put everything I got on her or she's going to put everything she's got on me, but we'll tackle it together. And there's certain ways to do it where you're like, okay, I'm going through this mentally and this is what I'm going, or I talked to a lot of people today. I'm just burnt out. I need my battery to be recharged today because it was more intense than usual today. Time and stuff like that.
And I think too, like with you, like he's an all or nothing kind of person. You really are. Like
most of the
he's
time,
either gonna be like for work, for instance, you have that workbook that you've been working on.
Yeah.
And you would literally do a chapter of that thing every single night until you were done.
Yeah.
Like he would literally sit there and it's like on your day off. I told you this last night. He's off certain nights of the week, and I say you're not. He pulls it out. I said, you're not doing that tonight. You go, I'm not? I said, no, because it's your night off. Like, this is your day off. Don't do it on your days off because then it's like you never leave work. You're always there because mentally you're always dealing with the stuff that you were dealing with at work.
Yeah.
Deal with that on days you work. You know what I mean? But on days off, you should be able to recharge, get things done around the house like we did yesterday.
Yeah. And that's one of the many things I love. She is a very thoughtful person. There's so many times that she'll get me something or think about something, or she knows so much about me that she'll do stuff like that because she knows I need to recharge, and the stuff I wouldn't do for myself, she'll ask me to do for, she'll ask me to do for me, like that, like where I wouldn't have normally put away the workbook, but I did because she's right.
Like, read Fourth Wing or play your video game, do something else, do something you enjoy because these are your days off. And we literally were outside doing the yard all day yesterday pretty much. Like just do something that you want to do. Don't do the freaking oil change, you know what I mean? Or whatever. Like you need to just relax, calm down, and we're trying to get into where we're having more relaxing before we go to bed. We're trying to not take melatonin as much.
That's the other thing too, is we used to use, for a long time we've used melatonin and to help us sleep at night, and we were finding out things that weren't so helpful.
Like you're only supposed to use it for a month, and we're like, oh shit.
Yeah, we are not experts, and we're not.
Yeah, we're not experts, and we're not telling you to or not to, or
you do your own research.
Do your own research, but I had seen that you shouldn't be using it for more than a month or two at a time, and I'm like, okay. So we're trying to not do that, and it's been a journey. Definite journey, but I'll
listen to some ASMR to calm down, and she's been watching meditation music or meditation stuff.
Or like
to unwind.
I tried to watch an ASMR video the other day.
It's
I think it's a acquired thing. But I'm sure I could find some kind of
like
ASMR.
A page-turning one or something.
A page-turning, like, library sounds or something that I would probably enjoy. The one I was watching, I did not enjoy.
ASMR.
It was way too... I don't like people that whisper, and a lot of it is whispering, and I'm like,
She does love ASMR rooms, we both do.
I do like ambiance rooms, for reading, or... Because I'll put on, like a fireplace one and give it, like, a fall feel, and... Because Nick's like, I can almost feel the fire. Like, you love that kind of stuff.
It's weird, and it sounds strange, I know, but if you have the fire on the TV, you can almost feel the heat. It's almost like it's one of those, the mind is powerful kind of things where you can trick yourself into feeling a certain way or something like that.
Yeah. Did you want to talk about being an introvert?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of misconceptions about mental health in general. One of them with introvert is a lot of people think introverts are just being shy, and that if they're broken out, one of the terms that comes up very often is you just need to break out of your shell. You just need to break out of your shell. And shyness can be a component of introverts. There's probably a greater correlation of shyness with introverts than with extroverts, but there's a lot more to it than just being shy. One of the ways that I think Simon Sinek, I hope I'm saying it right, it explains it, is basically extroverts start off with no coins, and they get more coins, more energy by talking with people. Whereas with introverts, they start off with coins, and then each social interaction drains them of those coins, the energy. Basically, with introverts, socializing drains you mentally, and it can sometimes be physical too, where if I talk to too many people in a day, I just feel physically tired. And it's one of those things, like if you've ever like cried a lot and then you feel tired afterwards, like just physically tired, it's kind of like that almost, only you don't cry. But if you talk to too many people, it can be very overwhelming and just really tired. And the other thing is, no one is entirely, that I've heard of, entirely extroverted or introverted. It's
Like
kind
a
of
spectrum.
a spectrum or a ratio. Like if I had to say on a good day where I'm really friendly, I'm probably 60% introverted and 40% extroverted. And there's sometimes where people are confused because I'll save most of my extroversion for work, and people think I'm super friendly and all this stuff, and they have good intentions. They'll offer to like hang out with me after work and stuff like that, and they mean well most of the time. And it's just like I'm just so burnt out. A lot of times, being an introvert, socializing can be one of the most challenging and draining aspects of work. So it's almost like, imagine you were like a dishwasher, right? And you're trying to make the best out of your job as being a dishwasher and try to have fun and listen to music and whatever. And then someone sees you having fun and be like, "Hey, you want to do wash dishes after work?" You're like, "Anything but that, please,
Yeah.
please, no more washing
Yeah.
dishes." And it's like that where I've had it where I don't want to jeopardize my work relationship with somebody, so I'll go hang out with them, and I'll be bored out of my mind the whole time. I still feel like I'm at work because I'm socializing, and it's another way. I've tried to think of many different metaphors to explain it, but one of them is like, I had a great dentist that removed my wisdom teeth, and he was great to talk to and everything. He was everything you would hope for in a dentist. He listened to my concerns. We even talked about Zelda and different stuff. But at the end of the day, after the appointment, I leave, and I've never seen him again, and that's okay. I don't hate my dentist. He was a great dentist. Like if he asked me like, "Hey, you want to hang out afterwards?" That would be weird. And I feel the same way a lot with my coworkers. Like for the role of a coworker, I try to be a good coworker, and they try to be a good coworker, hopefully, and hopefully we have a good working relationship. But once I clock out, it's over. And just like I don't hate my dentist, I don't necessarily hate them. There's some of them I hate, maybe in some circumstances, but that doesn't mean I necessarily hate you. It's that it's a working relationship, and friendships are very, very rare for me because most of my, it's a capacity issue with introverts, where you can only handle so much social interaction before you're just burnt out on that and you don't want any more of that. And a big chunk of that gets taken up social. A lot of workplaces are extroverted dominated, where you have to be very social and talk with people, and then so much of my desire for social interaction gets taken up with that, and whatever little I have left I save for family and to be with Michelle.
Right.
And she is one of the very rare people where the more I hang out with her, she doesn't drain me nearly as much mentally or physically as most other interactions do. And that's one of the many reasons why I love being with her, is because I could literally spend all day every day around her and not get more tired because of it.
But I think too, part of that is because I'm very understanding of like, like I want to. I usually once a day I'll go somewhere, Target, Walmart, somewhere. I have to get out of the house. I'm not as introverted as you are.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I still think I'm an introvert. I'm just not as, because I take me to two stores and then I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't think I'm as introverted as you are. But I think with me, the reason you can be around me all day is I get it. You want to sit there for 5 hours and not say one word to each other and just watch YouTube videos and play Terraria or Valheim or whatever? I'm good with that. You know what I mean? But it took us a while, even we didn't talk about this in the last episode, to get to that point where we could just hang out. Or you didn't think I wanted you to spend money on me every time we went somewhere.
Yeah, I was worried at the beginning that I had to take her out to places, and I was spending a lot of money, and I ran out of money eventually, and I was like, "Hey, I'm I understand
And
if you don't want to be with me anymore, but I
he
don't have
literally
any.
messaged me that. I understand if you want to break up. I don't have any more money. Like, I can't. I'm like, we literally can sit at my house in my room and play video games together. Like, we don't have to go anywhere. Like, we can go to Taco Bell every Tuesday and get burritos. Like, I could care less where we go. You know? What are we at?
We're at about 45
Oh,
minutes,
okay,
but we can
time.
make it longer if we need to.
But you know what I mean? Where it was like, you just gotta find your person. And I genuinely believe that.
Yeah.
You have to find somebody that's just like, whatever you want to do is good. And then you're the same way with them. Whatever you want to do, fine. Like, because I don't think we would have worked with anybody else, because I want to go get 2 more beta. You don't even bat an eye.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, you're taking care of them.
Yeah.
He likes them. I mean, it's not like I bring home horses or anything, but
Yeah.
But he's just like, because I think you know too that I know my limit with things.
Yeah, you know your limit, and it makes you happy, and I want you to be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he the same way with Nick. If he came home tomorrow, was like, I want to go. You know, I don't know. You're not really that like spontaneous of a guy, but like if you came home tomorrow, and you're like, I'm gonna go get a car. I would take you to go look at cars.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a great idea, but I would take you to go look at cars. Like, I'm gonna support you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna explain my concerns and support whatever you want to do. But that's, you have to have that kind of person that's like, because there are times when I've said I want to do this, and you're like,
I'm kind of burnt out from work. I don't want
like,
to go out today.
well, no, I mean, like,
Yeah.
even a decision I'm gonna make, like, I
Yeah.
want to go. I don't know. This is just an example. We're not getting any more animals. If I was to say, I want to go get another guinea pig, you'd be like,
I don't know.
remember the last one we had and how much work it was and blah 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 and blah. You know what I mean? Like, you had to have that person that's like your, like,
Yeah,
your meter of like,
that makes
okay,
sure.
like, I don't mind you doing minorly crazy crap and bringing it home, but that is a little bit, because you're not going to be the only one taking care of it. You're going to have to help me help you. And you know what I mean? I generally try not to make decisions that are for both of us.
Right.
By myself.
Yeah, by yourself. And we definitely consult each other. If something's going to affect both of us, we definitely try to talk it out.
Like, I was like, I want to go get another dog. Not happening. But I'm just saying, if I was, I would definitely not just bring one home.
Right.
Every time I brought, even with Pete and with Pie, when I brought them home, we had a conversation about it first. Now, I don't know with either one of them, you knew they were coming home that day.
No.
But we did have a conversation. We were in agreement that we were going to get, even with Jack, we were in an agreement.
Yeah. And they are great animals. We love them. They're great pets.
Yeah. They're being quiet right now because they just had treats. But I think that, we're good for each other because we can talk to each other, and neither one of us makes the other one feel like they're crazy.
No, we're really good at communicating things and understanding each other. You really understand me better than most people ever have.
Yeah.
And I love you, and I appreciate you for that.
And I mean, there are still places where I feel like we could get better about, I could get better about stuff, like when you first get in the car, like, after work, and you're like, oh, this was horrible. I'm like, you'll be fine. Sometimes I feel like I kind of downplay it a little bit. I mean, eventually I come around.
Right.
But by the time you get in the car, I'm like, I'm so tired. Because I've been dealing with the whole house all day, and, but I feel like there are things I could get better at, and just putting a little bit more effort forward. But I mean, I do come around to it. I'm never like, you'll be fine, and then just don't want to hear about it ever.
Right.
Like, I always obviously come around, and I'm like, okay, well, what exactly happened? You know what I mean? Because a lot of times I'll be like, well, have you ever thought about that maybe it's this, or this? And then you'll say, I didn't even think about it that way.
Yeah, and you're really good at letting me know different perspectives of things, or reasoning with me to.
Well, yeah, it's just knowing, because I feel like you're an introvert and you're not like, I'm introverted too, like I said, but I've had a little bit more experience with people, because whereas certain jobs, like maybe you're on the back side of it, I was on the front side, even if it was the same place.
Yeah.
I'm in the front side of it with all the people, and I'm constantly around people and people and people. So you get more of this is just how people are.
Right.
Like, a lot of the issues, like, you have even with your job now, that you're like, I don't know why these people talk about each other. I don't know why it's so much gossip. that is just people at a job. And I think a lot of it with you is like you're with people either your own age or younger than you.
Right.
Younger people are the worst. They're constantly gossiping about each other
Right.
or
And
complaining.
that's another component too. And one of the things, this is one of the metaphors that I've tried to explain introversion to people is oftentimes mental health is not treated the same way that physical health is. And people recognize that for physical health, there is a capacity limit and the quality of the things. Like, for instance, there's a food cycle. You eat food, then if you eat too much, you start to feel unwell. Then if you keep going beyond that, then you really don't feel good. And then if you can get really sick if you keep going. Then you need to take a break. Your body filters out the good from the bad, and then eventually you filter all that out, all the toxins and everything. Then after a while, you feel like you want to eat again.
Right.
And it's a similar thing to socializing with people, that you can only handle. There's like, even though it's a mental thing, people think you can talk to people all the time, constantly. There's no capacity limit, but there is. Even if you can't see it, there's only so many people that you can talk to before you start to feel unwell and not good, and just tired. It's kind of like if you've ever had food coma or had too much food, where you just feel just super tired and not good. That's how it feels like in some ways after talking to too many people. You just feel exhausted.
Yeah.
And that's even if you have positive experiences. Yeah.
Oh yeah, people can be nice.
Yeah.
And you just get to a point where you're like, you're really nice, but I am so tired right now.
Yeah.
You know?
And sometimes it can give you a bit of energy, and I think that's what it's like to be an extrovert, because there are times that I'll get charged up by a conversation, but that's like 5% of the time. And I think that's where extroverts or some people might get confused, because they're experiencing being charged up by a conversation like 70% of the time, maybe. And whereas with me, that's like 5%. And then, so even if it's positive experiences, eventually it can get to you after. And then, let alone the toxic ones where people are complaining about each other constantly,
because you hate that,
or complaining to you. And I just want to get away from the bullshit. I want to get away from people backstabbing each other and talking bad, and then acting nice, like basically the snakes, talking bad to, two-faced people type of situation. I want to get away from the bullshit and all that, and and be at peace. And that's another misconception that often people have, is that just because you're around people doesn't mean that you're not lonely. And being around people doesn't automatically mean that you're not lonely. You can be so lonely around a crowd of people, because it's kind of like being in an ocean and dying of thirst, because there's water all around you, but you can't drink any of it. And just because you're around people doesn't mean you can make connections and relate to people, and that it's a positive experience. And there's a lot of misconceptions about mental health, but people are gradually coming around. But there's more to go. But that's one of the things about being introverted.
And I think too, it's not even so much maybe even about the person. It's like there's even people in my life that I love very much that are very good friends to me, that I have moments where I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to answer the phone right now. I can't do it. It's nothing about them as people. Like, they're great people and I love them very, very, very much. But it's like you just get to a point sometimes where you're like, I said it to you, and I love you more than probably anybody on earth other than Connor, which is a different kind of love. But
and
you know
your
what I
mom,
mean? And my mom, yeah, other than, my family, I probably love you the most of anybody.
Yeah.
And there's times with you where I literally will look at you and be like, I cannot right now. Like, I just can't. And it's not anything about you or what you're saying is not important or anything like that. It's just, I am so, and he'll make me feel bad sometimes. Like, I'm so tired, I just can't. He'll be like, but I really need to say this now. And then you just gotta kind of be like, okay, let's hear it. Because I do care about you, and you are very important to me. So it's like, sometimes you just have to do it anyway.
Or I'll tell you later sometimes. I should do that more often, where I'll be like, can I tell you at a different time?
Yeah.
Because when you're at that limit, you're at that limit. A cup can only hold so much water, and then
usually though, he says, "Can I tell you later?" Then I'm like, "Well, what is it?" And then I don't want to know. Start to overthink. Yeah. So it's like, but yeah, I think a lot of like anxiety, mental health, even being an introvert, it's just you just have to find a person that's gonna understand.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that are some people that I consider friends. Like I've worked with hundreds of people,
Yeah.
and out of those 100, there's like maybe 10 or 20 people that I considered friends. And then out of them, there's maybe 2 people I talk to, and even then, it's usually on birthdays or Thanksgiving or Christmas, where sometimes I'll talk to them on Facebook. But
Yeah.
almost, and it's not that they're. I've had a lot of positive experiences with them, and they're good people, and I like them a lot. It's just once again, work takes up so much of my social capacity, and then whatever's left, I save for family, and then
Yeah.
after that, there's just nothing.
I
There's
think
nothing
too,
left.
with friendships and stuff like that, is like the part that kind of gets me is like you think this person's gonna be your friend for at least for me, because for you could care less whether they talk to you outside of work or not. But I feel like for me, I do like to have friends, like somebody I can call on the phone and just chit chat or whatever. But sometimes I've been in situations with jobs, especially the older I've gotten, where you're like real close. I can think of one person at my
I can
the
think of
old
it.
job that we had, that I was like so close to him, and he was like one of my besties, and I'm like, oh my god, this is like this. Even if we weren't working together, we'd still be friends. And I quit that job twice. Never heard from them again, and that's hurtful. It's to
It's
a
tough,
point where
yeah.
it's kind of like, I have gotten to the point now where I'm like, you know what it was, and he was a good friend while we were working together. But it's gotten to a point where I'm just like, I have 2 people that have been my friends for the last 18 years. I don't need any more friends. And the more that I am encountering people, and the more that I'm in Facebook groups or whatever, trying to meet people that have same what am I trying to say, interests as me, like reading or betas or whatever, the more I'm realizing, and I've gotten real good at this, is I just don't want to deal with these people.
Right.
Like I've had a few friends recently, I'm using that term very loosely, that I've literally cut off and just been like, I don't want to talk anymore, because every time you talk to me, it's either condescending, or you don't have time, or you won't answer me for 4 or 5 days, which is fine if there's an emergency, but don't. This is the part that bothers me about people. They're like, oh, I'm really busy. Like, I just been busy. I can't answer your message. But they're posting every half hour on their timeline on Facebook. You don't want a friend
Yeah.
that can't make time for you. I'm sorry. And I'm not saying I need somebody that's going to be FaceTiming me for 24 hours a day. It's
Right.
just when I want to talk to somebody, it'd be nice to get an answer if you're posting on Facebook.
You just want someone that can reciprocate and give back the way
Because I feel like I'm a pretty good friend and I give.
you are, yeah.
Like, I have a friend right now, she's a new mom. She just adopted her baby like a year ago. I'm like, girl, anytime you need to call me and complain or whatever, it's like, no judgment, just call me.
Yeah.
And she knows she can do that, and I know I can do the same thing with her if I need to complain about something. Same thing with Connor's dad. If I need to talk to somebody about something and you're at work or whatever,
Yeah.
I always know that I have these other 2 people that I can. That's all I need. I'm just trying to remind myself, that's all you need.
Yeah, there's only so much time and so much energy and that you have.
Yeah, and you don't want to put it into people that are not gonna make time for you or put the same amount of energy into it.
Right. And also the other way around, if you don't have the time or energy to put into them, it's more respectful for them to be like, I can't, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I can't do that. Because there's people even now, not recently, but just a while back, that people again would be like, oh, you want to hang out after work. And it's always an awkward thing because they don't understand it. They don't
Right. They think
understand.
you just don't like them.
They just don't think I don't like them. And that's why I was using the dentist metaphor, because it's not that I don't like my dentist. I like him as a dentist. And I like them as a coworker.
Right.
But friendship is incredibly rare because I just don't have that much capacity for it or much time for it.
Yeah.
And so they think, oh, they don't like me as a coworker, and which is not the case most of the time. Every once in a while it will be that, but it's mostly I just don't have the time or the energy for it.
And the thing is, people think, oh, what do you mean you don't have the time? You work 8 hours a day. There's 24 hours in a day. You have 2 days off. Here's the thing, okay? That time is sacred.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, too. Maybe on a rare occasion, but 9 times out of 10, I don't want to spend it with you. And that's nothing against you.
Yeah.
I just don't want to spend it with you. Because same thing with me when I was working well, last job I had, I had somebody be like, oh, you want to go, I walk here, you want to come and you can bring your husband and we'll go for a... No. Like,
Yeah.
just no. And it's not because I don't like you, and it's not because I don't think you're a great person and you have a great... I just am tired, and I want to be at home, and I want to play video games, and I want to not be here with you.
Yeah.
No offense.
Yeah.
But also full offense. Stop talking to me, no.
Yeah. For having to be at a place to for a paycheck to make a living, you know, and you have them as a coworker, it's not that bad.
Right.
But if I didn't have to be there to make money, if automation takes over everything and you just get paid to be home, that would be great. And I wouldn't talk to hardly anybody.
And I think, too, you know, and like I said, we'll talk more about certain things when we do our next video, which is going to be about the channel and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think even too with that, that's why when I upload the podcast episodes or I upload my vlogs, I check my comments that day. I don't go on that thing again until the next time I'm uploading something.
Yeah.
And that's just, and it's not that I don't read people's comments. I always read the comments. I have to put them through. So it's like I'm always reading them. I'm always like supporting them, leaving another. You do the same thing with your channel, leaving a comment. And it's not because I don't want to comment and chat with people. It's because I just don't have the time and mental capacity to even be social in that small way.
That's why I like the comments on YouTube versus like Discord.
Yeah.
Because a comment, you can see it and you can think about it. Okay, do I have the energy for this moment to make a comment to make?
This is why I prefer texting to phone calls.
Right.
This is exactly why, because I want to be able to think about what I'm saying before I say it.
Right. And then with Discord, you could talk with somebody. When you do a comment on YouTube, you'd be like, okay, this is going to take me 2 minutes or 5 minutes. Do I have the energy or time for this right now? Am I in the right mental headspace for this right now? Whereas with a Discord message, that could be like 20-minute thing, a 30-minute thing.
It could be back and forth.
You just never know. And it's much more demanding. It's much more demanding to have an instant message like that.
Yeah.
Now, I got very, very lucky with you, and that you and I have great chemistry and we get along really well. But 99% of the time, it's not that way.
No. But we came into it, and I feel like we were very, like, we talked about this in the last episode, too. It's like, we were like, this is it. Like, comfortable silence. That's what I want.
Yeah.
That's what I want in a relationship. We can have fun. We go out maybe one time a month, once every other month.
We'll go on a date
or whatever, but we don't need to be going out all the time. I just want to be able to sit in our bedroom, relax, you know, do our thing, play video games, talk, whatever.
Yeah, we'll be doing parallel play a lot of times where we'll be doing separate things but side by side.
Yeah, that's what I want, though.
And she's been great where I'll be in my headphones and she'll just, like, reach over. You guys can't see, but she'll like brush my arm like this to let me know that she wants to talk to me about something.
Yeah, otherwise I'm talking and I look over and realize she can't hear me.
Sometimes she used to do is she used to scream, but sometimes I don't hear her if I got both headphones in.
Yeah.
And so she'll do that, and then she'll be like, hey, do you like this thing, or hey, I wanted to talk to you about this, or whatever. And that's great. She's amazing.
We're all vent about something because I don't do reactions anymore. But can you believe? But yeah, and I think, you know, going back, circling it back to mental health because we're at an hour already.
Yeah, we're. I do know you wanted. We were talking about my dad earlier, and I wanted you to be able to talk about your issues first before, you know, I took up any. I wanted.
Oh yeah, go ahead and talk about your dad.
Flesh out, but. I've seen death. I've seen my grandma die. And I didn't see my other grandma die, but I literally saw my grandma die in front of me. And the type of grief that you have, that I have, is different from a lot of other people's type of grief, because they're grieving someone that they lost and that they love a lot and that they had a good relationship with. But for me, the grief is what they could have been, not who they were. That's with both of my grandmas, and that was with my dad. Both of my grandmas were not good people, really. There's ways they could have been worse, and I'm grateful for that, but they weren't good people either. Right. At least not from my perspective. And so it's a different type of grief and a lot of people don't understand because they think of their grandma or the archetype of what a grandma represents in their head. And then I say like, oh, I'm glad my grandmas are dead. And then they're confused because they think of their own grandma, which is a great person, or they think of the archetype grandma that makes you cookies and wraps you up in warm blankets and tells you stories and stuff. But that's not who my grandmas were. They were abusive people. Um, both
And
of them.
mine wasn't.
Yeah.
So see the difference between me and other people. I mean, I'm sure there are other people that are like this, but it's like if somebody was to come to me like, oh my, you know, you can kind of tell when people tell you something. Like Nick could be like, oh, my dad died. Like if he's not crying or whatever, be like, okay, are we happy or sad about this? Like let's fill out the situation because not happy. Happy is a weird word.
No.
But are we indifferent or are we sad?
Yeah.
Like what? Let's gauge this a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people, when you said your dad had died, they were like, "Oh, are you okay?" And you're like,
yeah,
because they don't know your situation.
I'm relieved, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
And
because you had been no contact since before we were together,
and it confuses them because they don't know my dad. And
right.
They're once again they're thinking of the archetype of what a dad represents, or they're thinking of their own father.
Right.
And a lot of parents can be not perfect and flawed in a lot of ways and make mistakes, but there's a threshold at one point that somebody crosses or different choices that they make where they're not a good parent anymore, or at least until they make amends or try to make things right. And once again, it was a grief with my dad of who he could have been. Not who he was, but what he could have been. And maybe the 20% of him that was good, that was buried underneath all that crap of what he went through, that he wasn't able to rise above his own upbringing, that he wasn't able to rise above the abuse that he suffered to be a better person through the end of it, that he'll never be.
Right.
He'll never have that chance to redeem himself, to live a good life, to know that the world was better with him in it than it was with him not in it, that he did more good things than bad, and that he meant something to people. Even if it's a minor thing, he didn't have to change the world, but he meant something. His life meant something, and he had some good experiences along the way. He's never going to have any of that.
Right.
He will forever be. I would tell him he would do awful things, like threaten to slit my throat in my sleep. Or he would tell me when I was a kid, this one's not right, we're going to have to kill him off and start over again. When I wasn't doing well in school because I was bored out of my mind and I couldn't relate to anybody and I was having issues. And I would tell him, you know, when he would do awful things like that he was going to die alone one day. And he never believed me. And then, you know, finally we got separated from him and were able to get away from him. And he died alone of a heart attack in a van.
In a park.
In a park. And he'll never have that chance to rise above. It's like I said, his parents had bad parents, and somewhere down the line there might have been someone good in the lineage and something went wrong somewhere. But that's why I wanted to be the last one. I didn't want this family branch of the tree to keep going. And I am the last one.
No, that you know of.
That I know of. And I have my opportunity every day, and I try and I fail sometimes, but I try. Mortality is a thing that exists, and I know I'm going to die one day. I know it. And I don't have to change the world, but I wanted to know and I want to feel that I've done more good than bad, and that I have risen above my upbringing, and that I have had some fun experiences, had some good times that I can look back on, and I did this and I did that, and that was fun. This was awesome. I got to help these people, and I have every day I get to live and breathe. I have a chance to get closer to that goal. I don't know if I've reached that goal yet, but I know I'm closer than my dad ever was.
Right. You okay?
Yeah, sorry, I went through it there emotionally. And I talked about things I didn't think I was necessarily going to talk about. And I hope I've came through where you guys can understand the things that I've said. I know some of it might be confusing to some of you, and that was not my intention. I tried to make explain where people can understand clearly. But
And if anybody has any questions, you always leave them in the comments, and I'll let Nick know, and he can get on there and answer them.
But yeah, there's ways my dad could have been worse, and I'm grateful that he wasn't worse because
Right.
I try to remind myself there's billions of people on this planet, and there's almost always someone who has it worse or better in some category. And so you count your blessings and you hope for that things can get better if you work hard and you do the right things. And to be grateful of what you do have and count your blessings.
But never downplay what you've been through. Because I feel like a lot of people say, oh, well, somebody's always got it worse than me. That doesn't mean your situation doesn't suck.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, don't ever be like, oh, I should be grateful because there's a lot of people that have things worse than I do. Yeah, I mean, to a point, yes. But also, you need to remember that
Right.
That doesn't make your situation suck any less. Like, for me, when I had the cancer, like, oh, I have cancer, this sucks. But I should be grateful that it's not, more invasive or whatever. I am grateful it's not more invasive. Doesn't mean having to have a hysterectomy at 38 years old is any easier.
No.
Or 35 or however old, 36 I think I was. It doesn't mean that makes that any less shitty.
Right.
You know what I mean? It just means that my journey's not as hard as other people's journeys have been, which I'm always eternally grateful for.
Right.
Just like your dad not being as bad as he could have been, you're always going to be eternally grateful for the fact that he wasn't as bad as he could have been.
Right. And I think the other thing too is it's not just what happens, but what you do with what happens that matters. Because there are people, I think that's the one thing you can get wrapped up in. I had this upbringing and everything, but it's what you do with it that matters. There's plenty of people who've had bad circumstances, but they try to do good with it.
Right.
And there's other people, I can think of one example of that they've had a really good upbringing or a really good life, and they don't appreciate it or they don't do good things with it.
Yeah.
Do good things with what you have. Try. Even if you fail, keep trying anyways. And there's for an example, there's one guy who got a car for his 18th birthday or something. He didn't like the car. It wasn't the car he wanted, so he drove it into a river.
Yeah.
And there's people who like, oh, my name wasn't spelled Kathy with a C, so I'm going to throw the coffee in someone's face type of thing.
Right.
So I've heard this before in a video. It's that the heroes and villains often have the similar backstory. They've suffered some injustice of some kind or they've been through some type of trauma, but it's what they do with it that matters. And
yeah.
The heroes are like, oh, I don't want anyone to ever feel this trauma, and I definitely don't want to inflict that on anyone else. Whereas the villains, they want to, and the only way they can heal that hole, that inconsistency inside, is to put it inflicted on other people, which that hole will never be filled doing it that way.
Right.
You want to try to heal other people. Right, and at the very least, not hurt other people.
Yeah, do no harm,
Yeah, as best you can. Yeah. But yeah, there's more we could have talked about. I don't know if you want to go beyond the time limit more than we have, or
no, I think we should end it here.
Or maybe we'll make
pick it up next.
We might make a part 2 at another time or something.
Yeah.
But I just want to thank you once again for everything that you've done and who you are, and I love you.
I love you too, babe. But we will be back next podcast, episode.
And I want to thank you guys for listening. If you've been through this part, hopefully it was more of a positive experience where you're like, oh, I can relate to that, and then hopefully it does more positive things for you than negative. And I hope wherever you are, it's easier said than done, but get through one moment at a time. If you're going through something difficult. There was some dark times in my life before I met Michelle where I thought I wasn't going to make it, but I got through one day at a time, and I found her, and my life has been better since. And if you're going through a tough time, you just get through one day, one moment at a time. I say that to Michelle a lot because if you take the whole day, it can be overwhelming, but if you take one situation at a time, it can be easier if you break down a problem. But you stay strong wherever you are important, and it's what you do that matters. Not what you've been through, but what you do. And what you've been through also matters, but it's what you do with it. I didn't mean to, you know what I mean. But thank you everybody for watching.
And we'll see you or listening.
We'll
see you guys in the next podcast. Or we'll hear you guys, whatever. I can't find the...
I'll find it.
All right, bye guys.
Bye everybody.